All right, today we're going to break down two really foundational models for understanding and, more importantly, designing mental health interventions. So if you're in a sociology of mental health class, this is for you. We're going to turn some of that theory into real, practical application. So let's kick things off with a real puzzle. Picture this. It's the 1950s, and public health officials are completely stumped. They're offering free mobile tuberculosis screenings, super convenient, totally free, and almost nobody is showing up. Why? I mean, it's a service that could literally save your life. That question, that why, is exactly what led us to our first model.
Okay, so here's our roadmap for today. We're going to start by looking inside the individual's mind. Then we'll zoom way out to see what happens when the system itself is the problem. After that, we'll look at a model for changing that system, see how these two ideas fit together, and finally, we'll give you a brand new toolkit for your own analysis.
All right, let's jump right in with our first blueprint, the Health Belief Model, or HBM for short. Now, this is what we call a micro-level model. It zooms right in on the psychology of one person's decision-making process.
So the big idea behind the HBM is that deep down, we're all kind of like accountants. We're constantly running this mental cost-benefit analysis to decide if taking a health action, like, say, going to therapy, is actually worth it in the end.
So how does this mental math actually work? Well, it all kicks off with something called perceived susceptibility. Basically, a person has to believe, hey, this could actually happen to me. If a student doesn't think they're at risk for burnout, they're never even going to start this calculation.
But, just feeling like you're at risk isn't quite enough. You also have to believe the problem is serious. If someone's thinking, I might be a little depressed, but is it really that big of a deal? Well, the motivation just isn't there. And when you put susceptibility and severity together, that's what the model calls the perceived threat.
Okay, so let's say a person feels that threat. What's next? Well, now they start to look at the solution. They have to be convinced that the action being recommended, like visiting campus counseling, is actually going to work. If they're skeptical, why would they bother?
And this is really the heart of it, that cost-benefit analysis. A person weighs all the good stuff, the benefits, against the barriers. And these barriers aren't just about money, right? It's time, it's energy, it's that fear of what people will think, that stigma. If those barriers feel bigger than the benefits, the action just stops dead in its tracks.
Sometimes the math all adds up, the pros outweigh the cons, and we still don't do anything. We all need a little push sometimes, right? In the model, that's called the cue to action. It could be something internal, like a panic attack that suddenly makes the problem feel really urgent, or something external, like seeing a poster or having a friend gently say, hey, maybe you should talk to someone. And last but not least, there's this really crucial piece called self-efficacy. It's so important that they actually added it to the model later on. It's not enough to just decide to do something, you have to believe you are capable of doing it. It's that gut feeling, that little voice inside that says, yeah, I can actually do this. I can make that call and follow through.
Okay, this is a fantastic example of how it all works in the real world. Look at this campus campaign. It's not just a random poster, is it? It is so strategic. They're hitting every single one of those buttons we just talked about. They raise susceptibility, they talk up the benefits, they knock down barriers like cost and stigma by saying it's free and confidential, and then they give you that super easy cue to action, a QR code. Brilliant.
Okay, so the HBM seems pretty useful, right? But it has some major blind spots. And for those of you studying sociology, this is where things get really, really interesting.
So here are the model's biggest flaws. First, it kind of assumes we're all Spock from Star Trek, purely logical beings. It doesn't leave a lot of room for emotion or habit or social pressure. But the bigger issue, the one sociologists really zero in on, is this danger of victim blaming. The model can take a huge systemic problem, like poverty, and shrink it down to an individual's perceived barrier. But look, if a student has literally $0 in their bank account, that's not a perception. That is a concrete structural wall. It highlights that classic tension between individual agency and social structure.
So, if the real problem isn't just what's going on inside someone's head, we need a totally different blueprint, don't we? We need to zoom out and look at changing the world around that person. And that's exactly where the social contextual model comes in.
The big idea here is so simple, but it's a total game changer. Instead of trying to change the person's mind, you change their environment first. The focus shifts from persuasion to reshaping the context that gives them their choices in the first place.
The SCM gives us this amazing map to find the right levers to pull for change. It separates the big structural targets, the social context mechanisms, from the individual ones. And here is the aha moment. The entire health belief model, everything we just went over, it fits neatly inside that second column. The HBM is a piece of the puzzle, for sure, but it's not the whole puzzle.
Let's make this real. Imagine an office where everyone is completely burned out. The old school HBM only way might be to offer a stress management workshop, right? Kind of like telling people to just cope better. But the SCM approach says, wait a minute, why is everyone so stressed? And it finds the root cause is a rigid scheduling policy. So the intervention isn't about fixing the worker, it's about fixing the workplace. You change the policy, you remove the stressor at its source.
And this is really where it all clicks into place. We can see that these two models, they're not fighting each other. They are essential partners, working at totally different levels to create change that actually lasts.
This table just lays it all out so clearly, right? The HBM is zoomed in, it's micro, and it's asking, how can we persuade this one person? The SCM is zoomed out, it's macro, and it's asking, what structural barriers are getting in their way? One is about the psychology of choice, the other is about the architecture of choice.
I love this metaphor. Think of the social contextual model as the bulldozer. Its job is to do the big, heavy structural work. It's clearing out the giant boulders of bad policy or lack of resources to build a smooth new road for people to travel on.
But what good is a brand new highway if nobody knows how to drive, or if they're too scared to even get on it? That's where the HBM comes in. It's the driver's ed class. It's the road signs, the education, the confidence building that helps people take advantage of the new road the bulldozer just built. You absolutely need both.
Okay, so let's wrap this up by putting it all into a practical toolkit that you can actually use in your own work and analysis. From now on, you can deconstruct any intervention you come across with these models.
So when you're looking at a case study or a new program, ask yourself, is this a driver's ed thing, an HBM-style intervention focused on beliefs, or is it a bulldozer thing, an SCM intervention changing the environment? Also think about the things it can't change, like culture or demographics. But the big one is this: does it do both? Does it change the system and support the people in it?
And really, that leaves us with this one big guiding question. The ultimate goal isn't just about nagging people to make better choices. It's about building a world where the healthy choice is the easy choice, maybe even the default choice. And to do that, you have to understand both the individual's mind and the world they live in. You need the bulldozer to clear the path, and you need the driver's ed to help people navigate it.